So in the previous session, I have set up the complete application wherein I have a web app and I have a web API. And of course, the web app is trying to make use of the web API using a URL. And I've also demonstrated when we are running locally how we can mention the URL of the web API in a web app. So going back to the same application once again, one small correction here. I did not change this localhost and 5000. I did not take these values from the variables. I want to take these values from these two variables, service host and service port. So how do we get them? So we can frame a URL here is equal to, let's say, string.format, and I want here http:// here 0:1 API/employee/1, and of course this is service host and second is service port, two variables. So instead of putting this constant, I should now actually put a variable URL. And for I'm also printing the value of the URL so that we know what is the value. And same thing, I'll try to print here in the constructor the value of host and port. Say host concatenate with the port. So basically we are printing the value of the environmental variables. Good enough. Now, yeah, you can test this locally and it would work fine, fantastically, because anyhow the value of this was localhost and this was 5000 and that was taken care of. I want to run this application through container. So how do we execute this through containers? Now what is important is I would like to use here two containers. I would like to put the web API in one container and the web application in a different container. So yes, we come to the folder EMP Web API. In EMP Web API, we have a Docker file. Just ensure that this whole set of command is proper. And here we run docker build -t, and I would like to create an image Sandeep Soni /EMP Web API and give dot. So I'm trying to build a image. Once the image is constructed, I would like to go to command prompt, another command prompt, where I can go to the hello web app, and there also I would like to build an image docker, and of course before that just confirm that in hello web app the name is correct. All fine. So now docker build -t, same story, Sandeep Soni /hello web app and space dot, and we should have an image created here also. So two images are created. Now let's run this first. Docker run -p, and here I want to do mapping of port number 8080 to the container port 80. So map 8080 to the container port 80, and I would like to run the image EMP Web API, and that's it. You can test it. First thing we'll have to find out is I'll use this 8080 with localhost and test it. Just go to the browser and make sure that the URL is working. The web API is accessible through http://localhost:8080/API/EMP loy/1 and I should get some data. That's the JSON object. Perfect. So it is working with localhost, but I want it to work with the container IP. So first I have to inspect the container IP. So what is the container IP? First check up, is there any container running? Yes, there is a container running with ID so and so. So use container inspect 97 and that is enough. And you see this is the container IP. So if I want, I can use this IP directly without giving the port number 8080 and it should still work. It still give the same result. So my requirement is simple. The hello web app container should use this as the value. Hello web app is supposed to send a request to 172.29.51.16 and port number 80. That is what hello web app is supposed to send the request to. How to do that? Now we have already got hello web app image created. So I want to run that minus p 8081 I'll take here, run on port number 80, very good. But now I want to pass the environmental variables now. So here you see in our code we are using two environmental variables. So right now they are taking values from service host and service port. Both are actually taking values right now from app settings.json, which is of hello web app. Hello web app settings.json. But we don't want these values. We want Docker container to assign the values. So whenever through run command, if you want to overwrite the values, you have to use -env space the variable name. In my case, it is service host colon the IP. Now where do I get the IP from? We got it earlier. We just copy from here. This is the IP of EMP web API. Very important. I'm telling hello web app. This is the IP of EMP web API. And this is the port number, let's say 80, the default port number, and I now give hello web app. So first something went wrong, minus p minus env here also. For second parameter also we have to give minus env. Two parameters are there. So for every parameter we have to precede it. Oh, run is missing. Docker run. And this also will start. And this is going to run on 8081. And you see it is running now. Now we have to send a request to localhost colon 8081 slash home slash get employees and it should work. Error has come. Now what is the error? Let us see. We are trying to print the value of environmental variables. What did we get the value for environmental variables? Oh, the value is still going as localhost 5000. That means the environmental variables were not picked up. Yes, I know the problem. The problem is in my command, let me terminate this. I have to also stop the existing container first. So this version which is already running, I should stop it. So docker stop d5 and you can say docker rm d5. Just check, there is only one container now which is for the EMP API. That is fine. The error in my command is server variables. It should not be colon, it should be equal to. Here server variables is equal to and equal to. Now let's run this. server has started. Now refresh this URL and we got it. And you see now here we are getting the proper URL. So this is the container IP. In that container, port number 80. See the previous one? 172.29.51.16. Same thing here. Colon 80. So what actually happened here? Now understand this, very important. Let me put a series of commands which executed. First I had to, let me stop everything. For the small application to run, so many things I had to do in proper order, that too. So first was to use Docker build. EMP web API should be built. That's the first command. Then we had to execute EMP web API run command. After this, I had to execute the command which will get me the IP address of this EMP web API. That was basically inspect and some name, image name, EMP web API container name actually. Whatever container name, and that container name we have to figure out using PS. Followed by that, we go to then Hello Web App. In Hello Web App, we first execute Docker build. And then we execute Docker run. And this Docker run, interestingly, is supposed to provide the port number on which it should be identified in the host operating system. And we have to provide the value of two server variables, environmental variables actually. Through Docker run we are able to give, and then the image has to be executed. So all these things have to be always executed in order for the complete application to run. A procedure has to be documented properly, and this is a tedious process. And this process I want to overcome. This whole set of steps. Why should I execute so many steps? Can't I achieve the same thing in single step? Yes, that is what is the Docker Compose purpose. And how this thing can be achieved in Docker Compose, that's what we will see in the next session. But right now, yes, we are ready with two container images. We are able to build them, we are able to run them one after the other manually. We want to automate this whole process using Docker Compose. So do continue watching the next session. Thank you.